Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to the very first episode of the Embodied Business Show for 2024. And I'm super excited to announce that this one has a video element. We are bringing it to YouTube across the stations now, and I'm incredibly excited to be launching this a little bit wider. So if you've never ever seen my face before, if you've never heard my voice before, if you've never been in my world before, welcome to the Embodied Business World. This is where we talk about all things that affect how you show up in business and business itself. Now, this could be your relationships, this could be your energetic practices, this could be your strategy inside your business. Either way, we're going all the way in. And I'm super excited for this first episode of 2024 because this is an episode where it's a topic that's not really spoken into a lot on this angle. However, it is spoken a lot into online. Now we're seeing everyone speak about New Year's resolutions right now. And, you know, we are 4 days, on the day that I'm recording this, we are 4 days into January, and I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the new energy of 2024. It feels like a really, really, really expansive year in the best possible way. Now, I've said expansive before, and it's not been a fun time because I had to walk through the trenches to get to the expansion, and this year feels different. And I've had a lot of my clients say this year feels very different. There's a new energy about this year, and we've just walked into the number 8. Now, if you've been naughty and not actually acknowledge what you've been naughty in, karma may bite you this year. But if you have been cleaning up your energetic messes and allowed yourself to really take radical responsibility for your life, you are going to be rewarded on so many ways. And I guarantee you, if you're listening to this podcast, if you come across me, you're in this space. I always say that those who come into my space are here for really, really big things because I see it in my clients. They all go out and do amazing things. And if you're here, welcome to that evolution. Welcome to the community because this year is gonna be huge and I'm so excited, so excited. So I want to get into what I want to talk about today because whilst you're setting these New Year's intentions, it's really important to make sure that we're actually reviewing and assessing how we set these things because how you set a goal will make or break that goal. Now, when you're allowing yourself to dive deeply into creating a new world for yourself or a new paradigm in a new year or whatever it may be, if you've not been really focused in on your growth, you're going to be hit like a ton of bricks with everything. They say it takes 30 days to build a habit, right? So right now, solidifying what it is that you're creating in this year is the most important time to be doing that. They say it's 30 days. I call bullshit. I would say at least 90 days, and I'd say it takes 3 days to break a habit, right? Think about that. If you don't go to the gym on Friday, you don't go Saturday, Sunday, and then you don't go Monday, you're done. It's really how it works. Like it takes an act of deep will to be able to get up and go on that 4th day because your body's going to start to resist that because it knows it's going to be harder if we go longer than 3 days. So today, that's what I want to talk about, how to actually achieve your goals so you're not in the perpetual cycle of choosing the same resolution over and over and over again. Now, when we're talking about resolutions, we talk about it from a sense of like, oh my God, like once that's done, it's done. But here's the thing. Resolutions become evolutions if we allow ourselves to tap into the depth of what we're here to create in that space. Let that land for you for a second. Resolutions become evolutions if we allow ourselves to deeply land in it. And that's what I want to talk to you about today because if you are repeating resolutions, I'm going to show you how to kick it out of your way first up so you don't do this again. Right now, the first one I already mentioned, it was like, do not go more than 3 days without doing something towards your goal. The reason why is if you go more than 3 days without it, you're going to justify it. Right? You might be like, oh, but I was so tired. The only time this is applicable is if it is a health goal or something and you are physically cannot get there or you've actively planned the time away from said thing. Now, what I mean by this is I've just literally had 3 weeks off my business. My business is going amazingly. It's booming. This time's been planned, and I've actively chosen to do that. So that's very different. However, if I had a big, big goal and I was like, well, I need to be on for that, I would not be taking that time out to choose that, right? What you do daily sets up your life, not in the future, not in the past. Right now creates your future. And Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about this all the time, right? Our field that we're operating from now is what sets the tonality for everything that we create in the future. So if you want something to be in your future, action it now. If it takes less than 5 minutes to do it now. Why wait? Why constantly put it on the back burner? Because this is the habit and the habitual practices that you're in every day in your life. So Tim Ferriss speaks about it so frequently, and if you haven't heard of this saying by now, I'm surprised, honestly, but do the frog first, the hardest thing first. Now that means if it's like a business goal, or if you're setting up something like for yourself, or if it's a fitness goal, or if it's a health goal, set your food up first. Do the thing first. Like, get into the office and do the thing for you first. I work with a lot of coaches and service-based businesses, and the one thing that they do all the time is they put all of their clients first every single time. And whilst it's not bad to put your clients first, it's also not the best. The reason being is you need to be grounded, steady, and be in a space to be able to deeply hold your client. So by setting yourself up first, knock the mic. By setting yourself up first, you're able to then show up powerfully for them from a completely clean and clear channel. And, so much so, like this year, I took the first week of coming back into January just grounding in with my business, with my vision. I set my vision for this year like 6 months ago because I'm one of those people who's very high level organized. Like I know the projections of what's happening everywhere. And now having this whole entire week just to sit, be with, create new structures, or finalize old things, it's just been amazing. So I know that when my clients come back in next week, it's going to be incredible. So my advice, if you want something and you want it permanent in your world, do not go 3 days without doing something about it, because this is where we build the mind-muscle connection. This is where we build the discipline, because once the motivation has died, and I promise you, within that next 30 days, it's going to die. I'm not here to give you some inspirational speech right now because it's actually truth. You're going to need discipline. And for all my women who are like, oh, but I'm so feminine, I'm so in my flow, discipline allows your feminine to hold so much strength in you, right? Discipline is what creates the structure for you to flow. If you do not have discipline in your world, you're going to be around and floating by and wondering why there's no money coming in. And this is a downside of the feminine that often plays out. She becomes so flippant with what she wants to do because she just wants to flow, that she forgets that there is a real beautiful element of building enough structure so you can flow for the rest of your life. This is what we focus on in Embodied Business, is creating sustainable businesses that allow you to flow and be fully who you are in your fullness, so you can actually just be with what you need to be within life. So no more than three days, not 2, 3 days without doing it. That's the number one rule. Now, the second thing I really want to talk to you about is make it measurable. You hear this every single time. Now, when I say make it measurable, I want to also remind you there's always room for magic, right? So you can measure everything and still you can get like an out of this world result if you, by some way, means believe in the divine. I know I do. I have a very close relationship with God, and every time I make something measurable, he surprises me with something way more crazy or out of this world that I just didn't even know was possible to achieve. So I love the fact that when we start measuring things, that's when it increases, right? Because that's where we're putting our focus in. Now, attention goes where our focus is, right? Energy flows where attention goes. And so when we put our focus in on that, regardless of whether or not we're doing things, we're going to get the energy and the build up around to start creating flow. This is flow. This is where the law of perpetual transmutation of energy kicks in, right? Because once we're giving it energy, it starts moving. And then if we make it measurable, we keep giving it energy, because it's like, think about it from this perspective. If you're standing on the scales, right, and you look at the scales and you're like, meh, doesn't mean anything, right? It's just what it is what it is. However, if you're like, I want to lose weight, so I need to stand on the scales to assure myself that I'm losing weight, you're going to stand on those scales and you're going to check in with yourself, right? That's an act of accountability. And the same thing when you have your goals, if you make it measurable, it's a self-led act of accountability. Now, if you don't know how to lead yourself yet, I'm just going to say it shouldn't be in business, right? Yes, there's mentors. Yes, there's people that are in this space for this reason, like myself, which I'm going to get into in a minute. But there's a deep level of self-accountability that you need to have to be able to create something powerful. If you want to really, really hit those big targets this year, whether it be $1 million, 6 figures, your first 6 figures, whether it be get down to a certain percentage in body fat, whether it be a certain amount of properties, whether it be a certain level of investments, all of these things need a measurable level of accountability, right? So it's really, really important that you allow yourself that space and check in with it, right? So I've actually put it as number 5, but I'm just going to really briefly talk on it now is, make sure you do frequent assessments on whether or not you're on track, because if you don't, it's really, really easy for you to slip and then justify. Once again, you'll come back to number 1. If what we don't do, we justify. And people think it's okay to just continue to justify. Every time you hear the word I just, or like just know that someone's justifying that, right? Like, it is so incredibly important that we start to look at our language patterns and how they're actually shaping our goals and those sorts of things, okay? So moving into number 3 on how to really, 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 really sustain your goals. And this one's probably the most important one, if I'm completely honest. And I mean this from a sense of like, it's not about needing someone to be smarter than you, right? Go and hire a mentor, right? But it's not about going, oh yeah, I need them because they're smarter than me. More often than not, if you're at a high level of business, you're probably not going to, quote, need a mentor. You probably know where you're going, you know your action steps, you know these pieces that you need to follow and account for. But the problem is, when we know all those things, our ego is really loud. Okay, so a mentor keeps you in check when that is happening. Okay, a mentor allows you to constantly be pulled back to your higher self when you can't actually get there yourself, right? And I see this so often. I have clients who they are incredible. They don't even need to come to me for business strategy, most of them. 90% of the time, the higher the level I'm working with people, the more I'm working on their mindset. Because the bigger the dream, the bigger the challenge, right? This is where duality steps in. If you've got a big calling, you're also going to have some big hurdles to overcome. All right. And I know for me personally, had I not walked through the childhood that I walked through, had I not walked through, the domestic violence, the multiple crappy relationships, the multiple businesses I started to be able to coach people now in businesses, because I had to go from failing to success to be able to do this, right? Now, if I didn't know how to do all those things, I didn't walk through all of those quote unquote obstructions, I wouldn't be able to hold the life that I'm holding now, right? So this is why every step I've had a mentor, whether it be days I just can't be fucked and they're there to give me like that little pep talk, or whether it's big picture thinking. My mentors, the first couple of years, they were guiding me in the strategy, whereas now there is certain elements of strategy that they're guiding me in, but it's more the thinking partner. It's more the bounce off. It's more the let's sit and talk and navigate how we can best serve humanity in this possible way. That's why you hire a mentor. So if you're big thinking, like if you're high level thinking and going, I've hired so many people, don't really need a coach anymore, I want you thinking about that particular piece. And it may not be that you need a coach that is like 10 times ahead of the game of you. It might just be, I need someone who can fucking open my brain up to think bigger. And when you have that, I guarantee you things will change really, 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 really fast. Okay. And shameless plug, that's what I do. I'm the thinking partner that you never knew you needed. Okay. Now your fourth one. Now this one's a really, really big one. And I didn't quite understand the power of it until I started sitting with plant medicines. Now, I'm not telling you to sit with plant medicines. That's not where I'm going with this. However, what I am telling you to do is build a spiritual practice with, for me, it's God. It can be whomever you believe in, but you need to build a spiritual practice with Creator, okay? Daily at a minimum. And that can be a 5-minute sit down, have a cup of coffee and talk to someone, talk to God, or it can be a dedicated meditation practice where you are trying to go deep with that relationship. Now, the reason why I say that this is so incredibly important is because when it comes to being of service and really choosing the path that you desire, your own voice is the most important piece. Regardless of your coach, regardless of who is mentoring you, regardless of whatever groups you're in and surrounded with, you have to have a complete clear channel for you to stay in alignment. This is why we see so many people, they start a business and suddenly they're like feeling so disconnected from their soul, so disconnected from what they're here to create in their life. It's because usually their environment has overtaken them. Now you stay in a deep, deep, deep relationship with God, and I promise you, He will keep correcting that environment every single time. You will allow yourself the space to explore and expand powerfully if you build this. Now, what I mean by this is you will become the byproduct of your environment, right? You rise and fall to the level of your environment. I can't remember who quoted that, but that's the quote essentially. However, if you don't allow yourself to audit this, to reconnect, to look in and actually have a look, is this serving me? Is this creating the life that I desire? Am I supported enough to expand into my higher self in this environment? It's time for you to get really, really quiet. On that note, too, if you are surrounded by people who constantly remind you of who you were and not who you are, this is where you get to check in. Am I allowing myself to actually build the environment that supports my dreams? Because if I don't, once again, this is on you. This is radical responsibility. A lot of people are like, I don't have friends. I don't have this. I don't have that. And it's like, you get to create that. And I promise you, the more that you hold that vibrational alignment of I'm here to create something bigger than myself for humanity, your people will naturally come to you if that vibration is true. If you're in this game for a quick ego fix or a quick cash dump, I guarantee you're not going to find your people. You have to get really, really clear for Soul Tribe to land. All right. So the first step to this is sit with God. And I'm talking daily. Your biggest problems in life is your distractions. And until you allow yourself to actually acknowledge what those distractions are, whether it be seeking approval from your family and friends or scrolling on the doom scroll online or sitting back watching Netflix 24/7. We have a strict rule. We got big goals. We do not watch any series. Right? I used to be one of those people who did not watch a single series in my life at all. And I barely watched TV because I didn't have the capacity or the know-how of how to really allow some boundaries with that. Whereas now I actually deeply know that I enjoy that. So I have boundaries around it. If I'm in a big season of business, we don't watch any series. If I want to watch something to tune out, it is something that has a start and a finish end. I know exactly the time frame that I can utilize it with. And I know that I'm not going to get caught up and distracted any further than the time that I've already allocated with that particular show. So that's one little thing that I do for myself with that. But make time to get quiet, my loves. Like about 4 or 5 years ago, this is when I first started this. And it would have been about 5 years ago, actually. And it came from one of my mentors. I'll give her a shout out, AJ. I think she's like third episode on this podcast, going way back when it was still the Feminine Files. And anyway, she was one of the greatest teachers, still is one of my greatest teachers. I still am mentored by her. I love her so, so deeply. Anyway, she had said to me, I was wanting to create my very first program and I didn't know where to start, didn't know what to do. And every time I'd go in and see her, I was so frantic and so like all over the shop. And all she did was tell me to go and meditate. And I was like, fuck this bitch, how dare I pay all this money for her to just tell me to meditate and get quiet? I want her guidance, not my own, and blah, blah, blah. And I had all the stories. The minute I started doing that, my entire world expanded. Like, I promise you, like, I created literally within 3 weeks of just sitting there, I had this entire program come out called Undone. And it was all about undoing the habitual practices that got you in the fucked up situation to begin with, right? It's allowing you to come back into wholeness of self. And that's where it began. And so from there, it all just like catapulted massively through the daily commitment and devotion to my relationship with God and myself. Because here's the thing, you are God in itself. So by committing to that relationship with God, you're committing to yourself. So allowing that. So you can call it whatever you want to call it, God, Buddha, Allah, Krishna, source, creator, whatever. Or you can just make time to get quiet. And you'll know the difference between the voice of God and the voice of fear. Because the one that is truly God will allow ease. It will settle your nervous system. It'll calm your mind. The one that is egoic will create fear. Remember that. Okay? A lot of people mistake intuition for fear. And intuition isn't here to rattle you. It's here to redirect you and guide you. And this is why we say often, like when we have a door shut that we didn't want it to shut because our ego was so attached to it, that's often redirection, right? Because we need that sometimes, because we can get so pigeonholed and focused on what we think we need that we're missing the bigger picture. And I remember years ago, when I left the military, I was devastated because I'd been advised to get out and reapply back in at the role that I actually wanted because I had a severe injury. And as soon as I discharged, they told me that I was now unfit for duty, never to join again. So I had been ill-advised and I was so angry. It sent me on a spiral of depression, anxiety, you name it, all the things for years and years and years. And I was so angry. And I kept trying to get back in and they kept knocking me back. Year after year after year. It was like 4 or 5 years. I just kept reapplying. And it wasn't until I started sitting and actually asking the questions, well, if it's not that door, then what door is it? And the more that I got curious, the more the doors opened up. So I want to remind you that the door shutting is not because you're not worthy. It's because there's a bigger one that's about to open. Had that door opened, I would have been living in my smallness still. Whereas now I've mentored thousands of women all over the world and I've done some really, really big things. So it's really, really powerful when you start to look at it from this perspective. Okay. And now the last one. If you're still with me, by the way, I love that because I know I can waffle. But this one is really, really big. And this one is the one that we still do every single time in our relationship. And when we don't, trust me, we feel it. We feel every tiny, tiny piece of this. So if you do nothing other than this one, you will create massive change in your world. Now, this is creating a weekly assessment with yourself. Now, this can be both financially and physically. This can be from whatever angle that you're coming through. Now, when my partner and I, when we measure this, we measure right down to the statistics that we have on social media and everything. The reason being is because I know the more attention I get, the more money I make. And this is one of those measurable statistics again, right? So it's like we get to really, really look at what we're doing and creating. Now, this weekly assessment is also a review of the previous week and a lock-in of what's to be achieved in the following week. Now, if you're getting to this and you're noticing that, okay, maybe I'm not getting all the things done that I desired to do in this time, this is where we get to look at your leadership as well. Am I overcommitting? Am I not allowing myself expansion because I'm not actually doing these things? Now, and this is where we start to break it down. Do I need to just set up a success list where I make sure I achieve 3 things this week rather than bloody 10? Because here's what the entrepreneur tends to do is create the ever-fulfilling to-do list that never actually gets achieved. And so we constantly feel like we're failing even though we can be winning. So it's just a little like mindset hack that gets to flip your script to allow you to actually win and succeed in life. Now, my loves, if you're feeling like so deeply connected in with everything that I'm saying here, I want to remind you that whatever you're choosing this year, whether it be a completely new way of life or a deepening of something that you've already began building, I just want to congratulate you for being brave enough to go after it. Most people are not even considering writing down their goals. I think it's 83% of people will not even write down their goals because they're too scared of what happens on the other side or if they don't achieve it, because their ego is so attached to who they are and what they say they're meant to be. But here's the thing. If you don't try, you never know. And your ego is only ever edging God out. It wants to protect you. And the only way it can protect you is by keeping you in a world that you are so familiar with, because it knows it has the strategy to keep you safe in that. Your strategic mind already knows how your day-to-day moves in this current life. But if you suddenly start achieving all your goals, it doesn't. Remember that. It doesn't have a plan for something that you've not walked through yet. So this is where you're going to have to lean into your feminine brain, your creative side, the part of you that probably doesn't want to acknowledge that it's really fucking scary to do all these things, and your emotional side, and take a deep, deep look on how you're holding yourself. Because on top of everything that I've just told you here, your emotions will fuck up your goals every time. And I'm not saying that they're bad, but if you do not know how to check in with what is under the need of the emotion, you are going to get in your way time and time and time again. It is so incredibly important that you learn how to self-check and self-regulate to be able to achieve that which you most desire. Now, my ladies who are deeply feminine, I am such an emotional being, but I also know how to work with my emotions, not against them. So many people think that if we're emotional about something, that it's either we have to or we mustn't. And that's not always the way. Sometimes the emotion is just something new and not processed, and we need to have some time to integrate those things. This is where a mentor can help you through those particular pieces. So remember, with every new level comes a new devil, and you have to allow yourself the space and the grace to be able to integrate that with humility. Because if you're doing it right, you're going to be humbled at every fucking level. I know for me, every single time I think I'm on it and I've got this and I'm so good at business and I'm such a good mentor and I'm such a this and blah, 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 every time something happens where I'm thrown in the deeper end, there's always a deeper end, and I feel like a baby again, right? Because I jump into a new pond, or I'm in a new world, or I find out something that's a whole new level that I didn't know existed. And it's the best place to be, because if I stay where I am, I stay stuck, right? But jumping into new ponds, jumping into new oceans, jumping into new spaces, that is the only way you allow for your own expansion. So if you are feeling like you're the big pond and you're in the big pond right now and you're the big fish in it, go and jump into a bigger one. You'll achieve your goals much faster. This is why they always talk about how you should be, and like they pretty much every mentor says it, move away from home, because your hometown is a safety point. And the safer you are, the more you'll want to stay there. So, my loves, allow all the expansion of 2024. Let me know what landed the most for you. If you're on YouTube, drop me a comment. If you are listening to this on the podcast, please, please, please let me know. Leave me a 5-star review if you can, and subscribe to this as well, because here's the thing. We're going to go real big this year, and I want you, my community, my audience, with me. So if this is where you're at right now, let me know, and I will very, very shortly be bringing you in a new episode. Have a beautiful, beautiful first week of 2024. Enjoy, my loves.